Osimhen goal, Osimhen assist, but
yeah,
sure.
Ademola Lookman goal. There are a number of things that came together for Nigeria very beautifully. The first of them for me was not tactical. None of those tactical nonsense. It was just the sheer application and desire.
Exactly.
So the pressing that you saw from Ademola Lookman, what you saw from Osimhen especially, you don't teach those, right? Yes, you can tell your players that this is how we move. We are going to press in a coordinated manner. When we lose possession, we all move together or we step back 5 yards in between each player and all of that. But when the game starts and Cameroon have the ball 30 yards inside their own half from the center line, your default position, especially for a Nigerian team, and here's the paradox of everything that we saw. Yeah. Nigeria are a very defensive team in this tournament. For context sake, when Nigeria needed to beat Guinea-Bissau to qualify, Nigeria fielded 5 defenders against Guinea-Bissau. 5 defenders against Guinea-Bissau.
This team's strength on paper is their attack.
Yes. 5 defenders against Guinea-Bissau in a game, in a tournament where Guinea-Bissau are essentially the whipping boys. But that is the mentality of the manager. He is risk averse. He doesn't want to give away chances. If you look through this tournament, the numbers back that. Yeah. They have only conceded an XG of 1.23.
Unbelievable.
Yes. Which is similar to what they did at the AFCON.
In 4 matches?
Yes, in 4 matches. An XG of 1.23 before yesterday. And it is similar to what they did at the AFCON in 2021 when they conceded just 1 goal before the round of 16 match when they lost to Tunisia. So they are a team that is very defensive. And yet, when they were pressing, when Osimhen applied himself, you would think that he had the whole pack of the team behind him. And for him, this was his desire. He made it about himself to torment the team, right? And one of the things that I also liked was that Peseiro did not try to cage him by saying, don't exert yourself too much. And it's a very tempting thing for coaches to say to superstars, especially strikers on the continent, and say that don't try to waste your energy or any of that. But they apply themselves. The other part of it for me was that Cameroon were simply not good enough. So we saw the mistakes that they made.
That much was clear.
Yeah, that much was clear. But to properly explain it, they did not stretch the Nigerian team. They did not ask the questions that we thought could pose problems for them. Because up until yesterday, the Nigerian team has not considered a lot of chances because they defend comfortably within their zone. So teams are not able to stretch them. Every time the Nigerian team moves, when it is Zaidu Sanusi, Ola Aina, when Calvin Bassey has...
Sanusi was not that great.
He wasn't that great, but he looks...
His end product is very questionable.
When he has the ball, then you begin to see the defects in his game. But when he has to defend, you realize that he isn't terrible. And it's not because he's a great defender. It's because the team has been arranged such that he is close to the nearest defender. And there's always a midfielder close by to ensure that even if you want to play the 1-2 or try to draw rings around him, he has enough protective cover. So anytime Nigeria had to defend, they were defending in a very comfortable zone. What Cameroon could have done to stretch them was perhaps get the ball wide and get their wide players to be a bit involved in the play, combined with a midfielder or two, stretch that defense and maybe send in some crosses.
But that would not have even brought any success because Nigeria are the best when it comes to dealing with crosses.
In this tournament.
So far in this tournament.
And when you have to consider that Cameroon went to war with their second choice attack in Karl Toko Ekambi and whoever the other guy's name, you would have to then concede that, you know what, there's a limit to what damage Cameroon can inflict by deciding to go route one and sending in those scores. And they look like a very limited team. And I think that the signs were there. If you look at their second game that they played, their first game against Guinea, when Guinea had the red card, and for 60 minutes, Cameroon could not break them down. What was the approach? They sent in 26 crosses. 26. And what that says is that this is a team that is very limited when it comes to creating chances. And they are bent on sending in crosses to players who haven't earned a reputation as being able to convert chances of that nature.
And then the last game, they got success through crosses.
Yes.
With 3-headed goals. Was it 2?
Against Guinea-Bissau.
Against Guinea-Bissau.
But as we have established, they are the worst team from that group in the tournament.
True story. For Nigeria, Angola will be a completely different team to deal with.
Yeah.
There were some top performers in this game. Osimhen, obviously. Pasero said after the game that a young lady came up to him and said that Osimhen wasn't scoring and that if he wanted to progress, he should drop him. He said he just looked at her and said, "Thank you very much for your advice." And then he went ahead to play him. He didn't score, obviously, but he created the goal and so much more. Ademola Lookman, he has to take his flowers.
He has to. And
especially that second goal.
Exactly. I like the fact that he has been able to contribute at this stage of the tournament, not in a dead rubber game. Pre-tournaments, all the commentary was about how Nigeria's other stars are not able to assume responsibility and share the goal-scoring burden with Osimhen. So Samuel Chukwueze, Simon Moses, what's his name? Lookman himself, in the past, have not exactly been as assertive as we saw him do over the weekend for Nigeria. And it is good for them because in a tournament like this, you're going to need your key actors to assume responsibility on the pitch. Your main strikers are not always going to score. When you have that many, as Nigeria do, you would bank on the fact that at the very least, one or two of them will step up. And in the round of 16, Lookman paid his dues.
And the good thing about this Nigeria team is, like we mentioned already, Osimhen and Lookman, there's so many players having a really good tournament.
Yeah.
I can mention at least 6 of them who are having an absolute ball. I don't think Truzakon has put a foot wrong.
No, he hasn't. And
in this competition.
Look, before the tournament, some Nigerians were talking on Twitter about one of the players they've grown to respect, which is Truzakon. He did not have a lot of education in Nigeria.
No.
He didn't spend too much time in the formative years in the youth teams in Nigeria. But when he plays, he demonstrates a certain appreciation of the values people want to see a player reflect when they put on the Nigerian jersey, which is rare to find for a player who didn't grow up in the country. Yeah. And for that, I will always respect him. I respect the effort.
He puts body on the line.
It's all on the line. And it's not just brawn. It's not just rush tackles. When he makes those tackles, very
yesterday there was some block in that second half. Oh my God.
And we saw him at the peak of his powers against Ivory Coast in a match that they needed really to win that game. And I love it for him that he's getting the recognition that his efforts deserves, because Nigeria can be a very unkind place for players who are not performing.
Exactly. And there's a whole conversation even in Nigeria as well about players born abroad who may not necessarily be given their best. In this competition, it's actually those players who are having an absolute ball.
Yeah.
So I just mentioned Truzakon, born and raised abroad. Ola Aina.
Yeah. I think now everyone can stop criticizing him.
Ola Aina is having an absolutely amazing tournament. So good going forward. He's having skill of the day, back heel, twisted arm skill. He's having a tournament to remember. We mentioned Ademola Lookman, another one born and raised in the UK, having a tournament to remember. Another player that, in my opinion, is having a really good competition is Calvin Bassey. And they haven't started him too many times.
The difference between
him and Zaidus Zanussi, when he gets onto that left-hand side, is stark.
Yeah, it is.
Look at the way he created that second goal.
And nothing can compensate for quality in those scenarios. You can't. I mean, you either have that technical ability to
you don't.
Or you don't. I mean, and it's not just about sometimes the crosses, the decision-making of and the determination of whether to go for a pass, cut back, go along with a cross. Those are things in real game time scenarios you can teach. You either have it or you don't. And I love the fact that he has slotted into the team seamlessly and at a time when Nigeria needed him.